What happens when the man who built a hotel chain from scratch finds out a family was overcharged for their last meal together? Zayden Pierce leaned over the counter of his private office, eyes locked on the quarterly guest satisfaction reports. Most locations were doing fine, but one stood out: the downtown hotel in San Bernardino. Ratings had dipped, complaints had spiked, and while the rooms were still selling, people weren't coming back. He rubbed his temples. Could be food service, he muttered. The hotel's dining room was open to the public, and reviews mentioned long waits, cold food, and rude staff. Zayden didn't trust numbers alone. He never had. That mindset built his 7-location hotel chain from a single roadside motel in Bakersfield. But the bigger they got, the more distant he felt. He hadn't personally met every staff member in years. So he made a call. The next morning, wearing jeans, a faded Giants hoodie, and a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, he walked through the front doors of his San Bernardino location. The beard helped. So did the name tag, Lucas Mystery Diner. The hotel manager, a sharp-eyed man named Miles, barely looked at him. "You're the temp from corporate doing quality assessments, right?" "Yeah," Zayden nodded. "Just here to check the dining experience." Quietly. "Fine by me," Miles said, already turning away. "Just don't bother the servers too much. We're short-staffed." Again. Zayden took note. Staff shortage wasn't new in hospitality, but it was usually a sign of deeper problems. He headed to the dining room, which was half full. One server, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Harley, paced between tables, moving fast but never rushed. She smiled at guests, apologized for the wait, and kept things moving. Zayden sat in the corner booth, watching. 10 minutes later, a family of 4 came in. A young couple and 2 kids, one in a wheelchair. The older child, a girl maybe 10, clutched a stuffed dinosaur and looked around wide-eyed. Zayden noticed Harley guiding them to a table near the window. "We'd like the lunch special," the dad said. "Just something simple before we head to the hospital." Zayden leaned forward. Harley nodded gently. "Of course. I'll make sure it's quick." But before she could move, Miles walked in from the back, took one look at the family's clothes, worn jeans, faded shirts, and frowned. "Hey," he said to Harley. "No lunch specials for walk-ins today. Tell them it's regular pricing only." Harley blinked. "But the sign out front, I know what the sign says," Miles cut her off. "They just want cheap food. We're not running a soup kitchen." Zayden's jaw tensed. Harley hesitated, then walked back to the table. "I am sorry, the lunch special isn't available right now. But I'll try to get your food out fast." The dad looked confused. "Oh, okay. We'll just get 2 burgers and split them, then." "That's fine." Zayden watched the mom silently reach for her purse. The girl with the dinosaur was staring at the menu like she was trying to understand why things suddenly changed. When the food came, it was lukewarm. The fries were soggy. But the family didn't complain. They ate quietly, and when the bill came, the dad frowned again. $38, he whispered to his wife. "That's... Never mind." Zayden had seen enough. After they left, he approached Harley. "Hey," he said, voice low. "That family. Do you get that a lot? Specials being denied?" She looked up, surprised. "Yeah. Only when Miles is around. He thinks some people don't fit the image." "He said that before." Zayden nodded. "And the food quality?" Harley sighed. "We try. But we're down 2 cooks. One quit last month, one walked out 2 weeks ago." "Why?" "Miles again. He micromanages. Cuts hours. Won't approve overtime even when we're slammed. People get fed up." Zayden looked around the dining room. He could see the cracks now, chipped paint, dusty corners, and the tension in the air. "Thanks," he said. "You've been great." She gave a tired smile. "Just doing what I can." Zayden stepped outside, hands in his pockets, heart heavy. That family didn't just get overcharged, they were dismissed. Judged. And nobody had stood up for them. Except Harley, who tried. And was ignored. He walked to his rental car, sat behind the wheel, and stared out the windshield. He built this company to give people comfort, not to turn them away hungry. Tomorrow, he'd be back. But not as Lucas. Zayden arrived early the next morning before the sun crested the hills. He parked across the street and watched the front entrance from his car, steam curling from the paper cup of gas station coffee in his hand. The hotel lobby lights flickered on one by one as the automatic timers kicked in. A delivery truck backed into the loading dock, its engine humming low. A few minutes later, he saw Harley walk up the sidewalk. Her backpack slung over one shoulder, jacket zipped to the neck despite the mild air. She paused at the entrance, visibly bracing herself, then stepped inside. Zayden gave it another minute before following. The lobby was quiet, polished but impersonal. A different face stood at the front desk this morning, a young man, maybe in his early 20s, with a stiff posture and a tie that looked borrowed. He glanced up. "You here for the kitchen audit thing?" Zayden nodded. "Yeah. Lucas. From corporate." The clerk gave a short nod. "Miles is in his office. He said to just do whatever you need. Breakfast rush starts in about 30. Zayden made his way to the back corridor toward the service entrance behind the restaurant. Inside the kitchen, the fluorescent lighting gave everything a sterile cast. A single cook stood at the grill, flipping eggs with mechanical precision. Two others were prepping ingredients at a side counter, their movements quiet and deliberate. Harley was already in uniform, tying a clean apron around her waist. She turned when she saw him. "Didn't think you'd be back." He shrugged. "Thought I'd see what the morning crowd's like." She gestured toward the dining area. "You'll get your fill. We've got a tour group checking out today, big breakfast crowd. It'll be a mess." Zayden set himself near the dish, returned to stay out of the way but still observe. Orders began to come in fast: scrambled eggs, pancakes, toast with no butter, omelets with very specific fillings. Harley moved between tables with practiced efficiency, not wasting a second. But it was clear she was stretched thin. The second server, a middle-aged man named Ray, leaned against the beverage station while she darted from table to table. Zayden waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Ray hadn't moved. Finally, Harley passed him carrying a tray of drinks. "Hey, can you get the order for table 7? Ray didn't look up. "I'm slammed." Harley blinked. "You haven't taken a table in 15 minutes. Ray shrugged. "I'm pacing myself. Not my fault they overbooked the floor." Zayden stepped forward. "Is this normal?" Harley didn't answer right away. Then, under her breath, "Only when Miles isn't watching." Ray finally noticed Zayden. "Who's he?" "Corporate," Harley said simply. Ray straightened. "Thought you were just kitchen staff." Zayden didn't respond. He watched Ray finally walk toward a table, checking his phone between steps. The next hour confirmed what Harley had implied. Ray avoided any real effort unless directly supervised. Guests waited too long for coffee refills or clean plates. One couple actually left before their food arrived. Zayden made a quiet note of their table number. At one point, the grill cook dropped a spatula and muttered something under his breath. The prep cook beside him looked over. "You good?" The grill cook exhaled slowly. "Burned through 3 shifts in 4 days. My back's locked up." Zayden walked back to the prep line. "You guys doing doubles?" The prep cook nodded. "Every other day. No one else wants to work under Miles. I'm here because I need the paycheck. He cut 2 of our weekend guys without telling anyone, so now we're scrambling. Cut them. Claimed labor costs were too high. But we've got open rooms every night." "Doesn't add up." Zayden frowned. "And HR." The prep cook gave a dry laugh. "He is HR. He took it over last year when the coordinator left. Said it'd be temporary." Zayden didn't respond. He stepped back into the dining area just as Miles came out of the office, adjusting his tie. "Lucas," he said. "Glad you're still here. I assume everything's running smooth." Zayden met his eyes. "You've got one server working the floor while the other's watching videos on his phone." Miles frowned. "Ray's been here for years. He knows the flow. Let him manage his own time." "He's not managing anything." Miles crossed his arms. "I didn't ask for a second opinion on my staff. You're here to assess food quality, not personnel." Zayden didn't blink. I'm here to assess the guest experience. That includes service. Miles' tone cooled. Maybe keep to your lane. You're not in charge here. Zayden studied him for a long second, then turned and walked back toward the lobby. He passed the front desk clerk again, who didn't look up this time. Zayden noticed the overflowing trash bin near the elevator and the smudged fingerprints on the glass doors. Details that added up. He stepped outside, letting the door close behind him. Across the parking lot, the same family from the day before was standing beside a white sedan. The dad was adjusting straps on the boy's wheelchair while the mom loaded a small suitcase into the trunk. Zayden approached quietly. "Excuse me. Sorry, just wanted to ask something." The father turned, surprised. "Yeah? I was here yesterday. I noticed you had lunch in the hotel restaurant." The man nodded slowly. "Yeah. Why?" "I saw what happened. The bill. The cold food. I'm with the company, trying to understand what went wrong." The mother gave a tired smile. "It was just lunch. We weren't trying to cause a fuss." He nodded. "Was there anything else? Anything that stood out?" The man hesitated. "Honestly, felt like we didn't belong. Like we were being judged the second we walked in." Zayden's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry. That's not the standard we're supposed to hold." The father gave a small shrug. "It's fine. We had other things on our mind. Last trip with the kids before." "Well, you know." Zayden's expression shifted. "I didn't." The father nodded toward the hospital up the street. "Our son's got a major procedure. Out-of-state specialists. This was supposed to be a good memory." Zayden looked at the kid in the chair, who was now fiddling with a toy car on his lap, unaware of the conversation. Zayden reached into his pocket, pulled out a card, and handed it over. "Please, if there's anything you need, room, meals, anything, just call that number. No charge." The mother looked at it. "We can't take charity." "It's not charity. It's a correction." She took the card and nodded once. "Thank you." Zayden walked back slowly, each step heavier than the last. Inside, he bypassed the dining room and went straight to the office where Miles sat, feet up on the desk, tapping at his phone. Zayden shut the door behind him. "I'm done pretending." Miles looked up. "What?" Zayden removed his glasses and set them on the desk. "Zayden Pierce, founder, owner." Miles stood abruptly. I didn't realize. You knew who I was when I was feeding you profit reports. You didn't care who I was when you were turning away families who didn't look wealthy enough. Or when you cut staff without notice. Or when you let one server run a breakfast rush alone while the other watched videos." Miles opened his mouth, but Zayden raised a hand. "Don't. There's nothing to explain. You've been operating unchecked for too long. HR oversight, budget approvals, staffing decisions, none of that should have been in your hands alone. I was saving money. You were bleeding integrity." Zayden stepped back. "You're done here. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. I'll have someone retrieve your things from the office." Miles' face drained of color. "I built this branch up." "No," Zayden said flatly. "You built a barrier between this hotel and the people it's meant to serve." He opened the door. Harley stood in the hallway, frozen mid-step. Zayden turned to her. "Can I see you in the lobby in 10? She nodded, eyes wide. Zayden moved past her, already dialing his operations manager. "I need interim leadership in San Bernardino today, and call property maintenance. We've got a lot to fix." The weight of it all pressed down hard. But beneath it something shifted. This place could still be salvaged, but not without change, and not without accountability. Zayden stood near the front desk, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the lobby's entrance. The rhythm of the morning rush was slowing, but tension still hung in the air. Miles had been escorted out less than an hour ago, and word was already moving through the hotel like water through cracks. Staff avoided eye contact, Guests glanced around, sensing something had shifted behind the scenes. Harley approached quietly. She didn't ask questions, just waited. Zayden gestured toward the lounge area, a quiet nook with a few armchairs and a coffee table stacked with outdated magazines. They sat opposite each other. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zayden leaned forward. "You've been keeping this place afloat." Harley blinked. "I've just been trying to survive each shift. That's exactly why I'm talking to you." She hesitated, visibly uncomfortable with the attention. "I don't know what's going to happen now. I'm not here to dump more uncertainty on you." Quite the opposite. She looked at him, searching his face for something beyond the words. "I need someone who understands what this hotel actually is, not what it looks like on paper. You've seen how it works and how it breaks down. I want you to step in temporarily as floor supervisor, just until our interim GM arrives." Her eyes widened. "Me? You're the only one I saw actually giving a damn. You know who's pulling their weight, who's burned out, and who's coasting. I've never managed anyone before. You've been managing chaos every shift. That's harder." She swallowed hard. "What happens if I screw it up?" "You won't. You already care more than most people I've hired at that level." She looked down at her hands, then back at him. "All right, I'll try." Zayden nodded once. "You start now. I'll be around, but quietly. You run the floor." As Harley stood, the door to the lounge opened. The prep cook from earlier, Julian, stepped inside, wiping his hands on a towel. "Sorry," Julian said, addressing Zayden. "We've got a supplier issue. The produce delivery came in with half the order missing. No tomatoes, no greens, and the strawberries were frozen." Zayden stood up. "Who signed for it?" Julian shook his head. "No one. It was dumped at the back door before sunrise. No knock, no confirmation. Just shrink wrap and a packing slip." Harley glanced at Zayden. "That's been happening for weeks." "Write it down," Zayden said. "Document everything from today forward. Supplier name, time, condition of goods. We're not letting this slide." Julian nodded and left. Harley looked at Zayden again, her shoulders already squaring a little more. Zayden returned to the dining room. It had thinned out, but a few tables lingered. He saw Ray at the far end, leaning against a window, chatting with a woman seated at a booth. Zayden approached slowly, stopping just behind him. Ray didn't notice. "Yeah, nah, I used to bartend at a resort in Palm Springs. Bigger tips, better hours. But the guy running this place before? Total pushover. I clock in, do the bare minimum, and nobody says a word." The guest gave a polite laugh. Zayden stepped forward. "Ray." He turned, eyes narrowing. "Yeah. Let's talk. Outside." Ray's smile faded. "Now?" Zayden didn't answer. He was already walking through the lobby, out the glass doors, and into the side parking lot. When Ray joined him, he crossed his arms. "Something wrong?" Zayden's voice stayed level. "You've been coasting. You ignore tables. You dump your work on others. I get my job done. You haven't checked on a table unprompted since I walked in yesterday." Ray shifted his weight. "Look, I've been here longer than anyone. I know how things work. That's the problem. You think tenure is a shield." Ray raised his chin. "You think I'm the only one? Half the staff's been phoning it in since last fall. I'm not here to grade on a curve." Ray's jaw twitched. "So what, you're writing me up?" "No. I'm letting you go." Ray's posture stiffened. "For what? You can't just, you neglected guests. You misrepresented the company to a customer. You admitted to gaming the system. That's grounds for immediate termination." Ray opened his mouth, but Zayden held up a hand. "You can collect your final check from corporate. Leave your badge at the front desk." Ray scoffed and turned away, walking off with clipped steps. Zayden stood alone for a moment longer, watching the street beyond the lot. Cars passed. A delivery van honked as it pulled into a neighboring lot. Back inside, Harley was finishing up a conversation with Julian and a new face, a tall, quiet man who introduced himself as Theo, one of the overnight maintenance staff. "We've got a leak in the laundry room," Theo said. I've patched it twice, but it keeps coming back. Do what you can for now, Harley told him. We'll get someone in to assess it properly this week. Zayden approached just as Theo walked off. You okay handling more of that? Harley nodded. Julian's helping me line up needed repairs. We've started a list. Good. I'll make sure the corporate team gets eyes on it. Julian cleared his throat. One more thing. Miles used to short the line cooks on their break time. He'd say we were too busy, then dock the pay if we clocked out late. Zayden's expression didn't change. Can anyone confirm that? Julian nodded. 3 of us. And the records match. We've got screenshots. Send them to me directly. That won't go unnoticed. Julian gave a short nod and returned to the kitchen. Zayden sat briefly at an empty booth, watching Harley speak with a couple who looked to be checking out. She offered them complimentary coffee and took their feedback with full attention, nodding, jotting notes, asking questions. She wasn't polished, but she was present. He turned to see the young front desk clerk from earlier, Nathan, approaching. Mr. Pierce. Zayden stood. Just Zayden. Nathan nodded. We've had a few refund requests come in from last week. People said they were promised discounts that never applied. Can you pull the records? I already did. Miles adjusted rates without authorization. He'd lure walk-ins with low prices, then add incidental fees to inflate the final bill. Zayden exhaled slowly. Send every case to corporate. We'll issue full refunds. Nathan hesitated, then asked, Is this place going to be all right? Zayden looked around. The tension was still there, but it was shifting. Staff moved with more intention. The front desk no longer felt like a wall, it felt like a point of connection. It's not going to be easy, he said. But yes, we'll get there. Nathan nodded, shoulders relaxing slightly. If there's anything I can do to help, I'd like to. You're already doing it. Zayden stepped outside again, walking the perimeter of the building. The landscaping was overgrown in places. A few light fixtures flickered. Nothing catastrophic, but signs of neglect. Signs that someone had stopped caring. He paused near the employee entrance. Through the small window, he saw Harley sitting on a bench with Julian, both eating quick lunches from paper containers. They weren't talking, just taking a quiet moment to breathe. He didn't interrupt. Instead, he pulled out his phone and called his operations lead. Start assembling a regional support team. We need a new general manager, yes, but also someone to retrain the front desk staff, someone to audit our facilities, and someone to review the supplier contracts for all locations. If it's happening here, it's probably happening elsewhere. As he hung up, a memory surfaced: his first year managing the Bakersfield Motel. Fixing a broken heater in the middle of the night so a guest wouldn't have to sleep in the cold. He hadn't done it for the review. He hadn't done it for the money. He'd done it because it was the right thing. Time had pulled him away from that center. But now, walking the cracked pavement, he realized something. He hadn't lost it. He just needed to look again. 2 weeks later, Zayden stepped through the lobby doors again, this time in a pressed Oxford shirt. No disguise, no pretense. The front desk still had its scuffs, but the energy had shifted. Nathan stood behind the counter, focused, speaking to a guest with a tone that was calm but confident. When his eyes met Zayden's, he nodded, not nervous, but ready. Harley crossed from the hallway, her new badge clipped to a gray-collared shirt. We've got a full house tonight, she said without pause. The high school robotics team is checking in around 6. I've got breakfast boxes being prepped for early departures, and Theo already fixed the second-floor dryer. Zayden raised an eyebrow. You're not writing any of that down? I don't have to anymore. It's just in my head. He nodded once. That's how you know it's working. She led him into the dining area where Julian was at the service counter checking inventory against a clipboard. The grill station was manned by a new hire, Alma, a steady-handed woman who had worked at a competing hotel before being let go during a management reshuffle. Harley had flagged her resume during the first week of changes. At table 6, an elderly couple sipped coffee and read a shared newspaper. At 9, a pair of young professionals tapped on laptops while a server refilled their mugs without being asked. There was no rush in the air, but no drag either. The floor hummed with a rhythm somewhere between alert and natural. Zayden pulled Harley aside. "How's the team holding up?" Her shoulders didn't slump this time. "We're tired. But it's a different kind of tired. It ends at the end of the shift." He studied her face. There was still fatigue, but not the kind that eats away at someone. This was the kind that came from work that mattered. "I saw the supplier manifest," he said. "You switch vendors." "Julian found one that delivers on time and lets us inspect before signing. It's a little more expensive, but we're not losing produce anymore." "That's the right call." She hesitated. "We're still short one server. I'm not pretending we're at full strength, but everyone here is pulling their weight. And they know they're being seen now." Zayden glanced toward the kitchen where Alma handed off a plate with a quiet order up and a nod of thanks to the server collecting it. "I saw your shift notes," he said. "You've been documenting everything, even the mistakes." "I told them I'd be honest if they were. That's the trade." Zayden smiled faintly. "You're not just supervising. You're leading." She looked away, not ready to own the compliment. "I'm just trying not to let it fall apart. That's what leadership is." He walked toward the back office. Inside, the walls were already stripped of personal photos and the faux awards Miles had once hung. The desk was empty except for a new calendar and a small whiteboard with the next week's staffing schedule. A temporary HR liaison sat at the adjacent desk, eyes on a spreadsheet, coordinating final interviews for the permanent GM role. Theo entered, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Bathroom lights on the third floor are flickering again," he said. "I've got replacements in the cart." Zayden nodded. "You've been keeping up with everything?" "As much as I can. The place was more neglected than I thought." "Too much for one person?" Theo shrugged. "Yeah, but I'm not alone anymore. That makes it doable." Zayden turned to the HR rep. "Let's make sure Theo gets a maintenance assistant. Not negotiable." The rep marked it down without question. Back in the dining room, Harley was helping a new server restock the coffee station. The server was barely out of high school and moved awkwardly, careful not to bump anything. Harley gave quiet direction, never raising her voice, never correcting in front of guests. The girl nodded and adjusted her tray, a little more confident than she had been the moment before. Zayden stepped outside and made a call. "Yeah, it's me. I want to set the bonus pool for San Bernardino staff. Use the recovery metrics from the last 2 weeks. Anyone who was here during the transition gets a share backdated to the day Miles was removed." He hung up and walked around the side of the building, where the exterior landscaping had been trimmed just enough to look intentional. No frills. Just clean. A shuttle rolled into the lot, the side painted with decals for a robotics competition. A group of teenagers stepped out, followed by coaches and a few parents. Harley met them at the curb with bottled water and room keys already sorted. She was explaining where to store their equipment and how breakfast would be handled in shifts to keep it smooth. One of the parents turned to Zayden. "Is she the manager?" "Acting floor supervisor," he answered. "She runs it like she's been doing it for years. She understands what matters." The parent nodded and moved on to help their child with a bag. Harley returned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "They're settled. I've got their early checkout packets ready for Sunday." Zayden glanced at the time. "You're going to hit overtime." She gave a small shrug. "I'll clock out and stay if I need to." "No," he said firmly. "You'll take the time. We've got coverage. You've done enough today." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right." As she walked back inside, Zayden remained in the lot, feeling the late sun warm the air. There was nothing dramatic about the changes, not glossy, not flashy. But they were real. Nathan had stepped into responsibility after being overlooked. Julian had helped rebuild the kitchen's backbone. Theo had worked with what little he had and still showed up every day. Harley had moved from invisible to indispensable. And the family, the one that had been quietly overcharged and dismissed, had called the corporate office earlier that week. Their son's procedure had gone well. They'd received the full refund and a handwritten letter from Zayden himself. They asked for no further compensation. They just wanted to say thank you. Zayden walked back inside. In the hallway, the lobby music had changed to something low and steady. The front desk printer spat out receipts. The kitchen clock ticked just audible above the clatter of dishes. None of it was perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough.